is Jade Blackshirt. I'm from the Business Central team here at True North Dynamics. I'm excited to welcome you to our Moving from GP to Business Central webinar. Throughout the presentation, you're encouraged to type any questions that you might have into the Q&A, and we'll address them as we go on throughout the webinar, or we'll hit them up afterwards if for some reason we don't have time. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters. Gina Honer has been a GP consultant for over 20 years. Last year, she moved to the BC team and hasn't looked back. She is responsible for implementation and support of Business Central and provides great insight between GP and Business Central. Michelle Cerna has been a Business Central consultant for over 5 years. Prior to BC, she was a GP consultant as well. She built the Business Central practice for True North and manages not only the day-to-day activity of this team, but she also is directly involved with scoping, solution overviews, project planning, and implementation and support. So welcome to our webinar, and I'm going to send it over to Gina. Take it away, Gina.
Thank you, Jade. Hi, everybody. Well, here we are. We're going to talk about Business Central and GP. Here's an agenda for us. I'll start out talking about the Role Center page in Business Central, which is similar to your home page in GP. We'll then talk about navigating pages between pages and windows in GP and how we can do that. Think of saving a filtered list as a smart list favorite. So we'll talk about saving those lists and then move on to lookup flexibility. So I'm going to show you the very easy ways to look up master records, transactions, and items and so forth in Business Central without having very much information about those items. And then we move on to Excel, which is very exciting. Excel has a very big presence in Business Central, and we'll look at some of the things that we can do with Excel. Journals will be next, and journals, Business Central loves journals. Payment journal, general journal, sales journal, cash receipts journal, and everything ends up in a journal. So we'll talk about how that's managed within Business Central. And then we're going to end our session with a demonstration from Michelle on configuration packages. Configuration packages will replace Integration Manager and or Smart Connect for you. Very easy way to get data into Business Central. Okay, with that, I'm going to hop over to Business Central. And here we are. Now, for those of you who have never seen Business Central, a brief intro. Business Central is launched from your office.com site using your Office 365 credentials. Okay, so my page would look different than anybody else's page. Okay, and it is a web-based application, so you can launch it from any browser. And now we're looking here at our True North Dynamics sample data. What you first see is the Role Center page. Okay, the Role Center page is based on a role that you select for yourself after you've been set up, and it's set up to make your life most efficient while you're in Business Central. Things that you use most often, some good information based on your role. The Role Center page is customizable. Okay, you can personalize it, can take items off, you can add items, move things around. We want it to be yours. You know, it's your gateway to Business Central. You'll also notice on your Role Center page going across the top, we do have a menu bar. Okay, so we've got some drop downs to help you navigate throughout Business Central. Below your menu bar, we do have a bookmark bar. So when you open a page in Business Central and it's a page that you're going to be using frequently, you can bookmark that page and it's going to show up right here for you. And then with one mouse click, you can open a page. And we also have this Actions tile. The Actions tile allow you to quickly create a new transaction, generate a report, create a new cash receipt or even a vendor payment. So again, one-click options here on your Role Center page. Now, if what you need to get to in Business Central isn't popping out at you right here, your best friend is going to be the lookup here. So we'll click on this magnifying glass and we can go ahead and tell the system what we want. So I'm going to start typing in something that I'm looking for. And as I type it in, Business Central will try to give me some hits. And what I see here is exactly what I was looking for, and it's my chart of accounts. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this page. Now, what you see here is your list of account numbers. Okay. I'm going to hop over to GP real quick. And we know in GP, I can open up account maintenance, right? I have account maintenance here. This is where I can create my new accounts. I can look up my account numbers. I'm also going to open up checkbook maintenance. GP is going to allow me to have multiple windows open at the same time. We do this a lot, right? We move windows over to another monitor. It's just stuff we need to keep working on, not forget about it. So we just keep the windows open in GP. Well, it's a little bit different here in Business Central. This isn't a window, it's a web page. Okay? I can't move it around. I can't really do too much with it. But what I can do is pop it out. So if I click on this rectangle icon in the upper right-hand corner and click on it, it's going to open this page in a new window. Now, to give you the same example of account maintenance and my checkbook maintenance, I'm going to search for bank account. And I'm going to open up my bank account page. I can pop this out also. And now, just like in GP, I've got two windows open, two windows that I can resize. You know, I can do what I want with it. They are active. And this, when I first moved to Business Central, it was frustrating at first because I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? And that's when I found the little pop out. So what we can do is we can move these to another monitor. I can move it off the screen. You can't see it. I can resize it. When I'm done with it, same thing that I would do in GP. Just click the X to close the window. And I'm going to close those windows over here in GP. Now, I'm going to hop back to my chart of accounts. I happen to have it bookmarked. Okay, so it's right here. To bookmark or unbookmark something, you just click the banner in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, so now it's not bookmarked anymore. Now it's back on there. So when you get to a page that you are most familiar with and you want to keep it handy, just go ahead and bookmark it. Now notice in your chart of accounts here, our account numbers are one segment. Okay, there's a big difference between GP and Business Central. Okay, just your natural account is part of your account number. That's the only piece. The rest of the segments from your GP account number would translate to what we call a dimension here in Business Central. So I have some sample dimensions here. We track customer groups, departments, and teams. So think about your other segments. Think about your management reporter reporting trees and how we can create units on the reporting tree that will roll up data below it, units that don't even exist as a segment. You can report by all of that here using a dimension within Business Central. If I look at team, I can see the values that are assigned to team. So I have BC, CE, and GP. And because of these values, when they're assigned to a master record and or a transaction within Business Central, we are going to enhance our reporting. Think of it as like adding the reporting tree to your report in MR. Okay, so now I can run reports by my different teams. I can group teams together. Maybe I have some sort of geographical differences. I can do that too with dimensions. I can add dimensions to my financial reports. And I even can have what's called an analysis view. So I can slice and dice my data from Business Central very easily just by adding dimensions to transactions. So while it's a big hurdle for non-GP people. They don't really understand dimensions. But when I relate a dimension to a segment in your account number, I hope that that helps you. It makes sense out of our dimensions. Okay, I'm going to come back to my Role Center page. And let's talk about lists. Okay, I'm going to open up my customer list. Think of this as a smart list object, your customer's object. And what I have here is some sample data. I only have 5 customers, so not much I can do with it. But let's say, I have pages and pages of customers, and I see I have a column here called balance due. I'd like to get a list of customers whose balances are greater than $10,000. Now it's easy because I only have 5. But I have pages and pages, and I want to have a predefined list. I'm going to click this filter or the funnel in the upper right-hand corner, and I'm going to filter my list by balance due being greater than 10,000. And I'll use my enter key. Now my list has been refined. I see I have 1 customer. Now this list isn't static, okay? It is dynamic. I can save it, and anytime a customer hits that over $10,000 threshold, they would then, I don't know if I should say promote to this list, but then they'll be on the list. And I can also save it. I'm going to give it a name, customers over 10K. And now I have this list. I can close my filter. And you'll notice a couple things. First, the filter over the balance due column header is enabled. So this is telling you right away that this column here is being filtered. I also have the name of my filtered list in the upper left-hand corner. Okay, if I want to go back to my all customers, I just select the down arrow and choose it. Now, while we're here, notice there's other items below the line. Okay, there are some predefined lists for you that come with the system. And then if you happen to migrate from GP over to Business Central, these are the Smart List objects that will migrate over for you. Short of that, if you don't migrate, it's not a problem either, because then you can just create the list yourself and you can save it. Now, what you see here on this list isn't necessarily all you have. We can personalize our pages, and when you personalize, it's just for your login. We can add items, we can take away items, we can change the order of items just by using personalization. So that's where you get your power behind your lists. Even if you were to dump everything into the all list, think of that as the customer object in the Smart List with no filters or no search restrictions on it, right? So we have everything there that we possibly can have, and then you can just use that data as how it makes sense for you. So that's how we can save a filtered list. If you don't want to save it any longer, if you don't need it, okay, you can pull the filter back up again. There we go. I can clear the filter from here, which would just clear my view. But if I don't want that view at all, then I would select the vertical ellipsis and choose remove. And it's gone. So your list pages in Business Central will allow you to do that.
Hey, Gina.
Yes, Jade.
We have a question from Jody Spidell, and she would like to know if Smart Lists designed just for them in GP would migrate to BC.
Well, okay, so Smart List Designer / Smart List Builder from E1, its equivalent in Business Central is called PopDoc. They will not migrate, but you certainly can get them.
Thank you.
Hi, Jody. Okay, let's talk about lookups. I'm going to come over to GP. I'm going to come to purchasing, and I'll come into transaction entry. So I'm entering an accounts payable invoice. Okay, I enter my header information, and now I come to my vendor ID. If I know my vendor ID, I can type it in. If I know the first few characters of my vendor ID, I can type it in and then click on the lookup. It's then going to bring me to the first match or closest match to what you typed in. I typed in TAR, and there isn't a TAR vendor ID. Well, oftentimes our vendors could be numbers too, and then you really have a hard time looking up because you need to click on the lookup, change your sort to sort by vendor name, click in the Find by Vendor Name field, and then type in the first few characters again and hit your tab key. All right, so I'm still looking for a vendor, and I know that I thought it started with TAR, but maybe it really didn't. So I know in GP, I got some more work to do, don't I? All right, so looking up items in GP, unless you have something like SmartFill or a third-party product, isn't as simple as it is here in Business Central. So I'm going to create a new purchase invoice. I think of a purchase invoice as your payables transaction entry window. And I'm in the vendor number field here. Okay. I can start typing in anything in the vendor's name. It does not have to be the first few characters. I can say, oh, I know it's got the word import in it. And look what it does. As I'm typing, Business Central will start to deliver a list for me of records that meet the criteria. And I see here my vendor that potentially I need. But I say, no, 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 that's not them. Let me try something else. So I have this invoice in front of me. I can't read the vendor, but I can see it came from Miami. And look at that. I typed in MIAM. It has restricted my list and it has found one record. So this is my vendor that I have the invoice from. So I was in the vendor number field, not typing in the number, but typing in something about that vendor, and the system gave me a list. So very easy. Let's come down to the line items here. Same thing with an inventory item. I do not know my inventory items, but I do know part of the description of it. So I typed in a few characters, and sure enough, it found a list of items that have CONFERE. Ta-da! So very easily, I can select that item. So again, I'm in the number field. That's where the lookup is performed, but I don't need to be looking up a number. One more example here. Not an inventory item, but a GL account. So I'm going to come over into the number field. I don't know my account numbers, especially now that we only have one segment. I know that it's something, it's office supplies. So I typed in office. I could even type in SUP, and it's going to give me any description that has the letters SUP in it. So we really are making it simple to look up records here within Business Central. And now for the funner stuff. More fun stuff, funner stuff, Let's talk about Excel in Business Central. Excel has a big presence in Business Central. We want it to have that presence in GP, but it's a little bit more difficult, if not impossible. So let's look first at one thing that we can do, and that's we can send one of our lists to Excel. I can sort this list any way I want. I can filter the list any way I want. Okay, whatever I do to this list, when I select my page menu and I choose Open in Excel, is what I'm going to get in Excel. So let me open the file. Probably going to open on my other screen. Yep. And here we have it. How cool is that? Okay, in a matter of seconds, I got my filtered list of items from Excel or in Excel. Okay, so you're excited, but you're going to get more excited in just a second. Okay, so Open in Excel is going to take whatever is on your list and send it and format it in a nice Excel file for you. Okay. How about this? So I have, let's go to customers. I have my list of customers. My salesperson PS has left, and I need to change the salesperson on a whole bunch of records. Now in GP, and same thing here in Business Central, I could log in, could pull up the record, make the change, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next. I could do that. But what if I have 5,000? Okay, it's going to take a while. So if it were GP, you'd probably call me and you'd say, how can I make this change? And I'd say, well, we can create a macro that will run through each record and change a salesperson. Or I can write a SQL query to update the value of that field. So then you need some development there. Okay? But in Business Central, you don't need either of those. You can do this yourself. Okay? We can choose to edit in Excel now. So we know Open in Excel is going to give me whatever's on my list formatted in Excel. Edit in Excel is going to give me a direct connection in Excel with Business Central. Okay? It is going to authenticate my O365 credentials to make sure I have access to this, and that's what it's doing over here on the right side. And then it's going to produce that list. Now, that list is not the same as the list columns. The columns on the list are not the same as the list columns in Excel. What we have here, think of this as all the fields for the master record setup. All right, so this is all customer information here that I can change, okay? And it's just Excel. I can make changes here and I can publish it back to Business Central very quickly. So what used to take a developer or some time to do or a temp, you can now do it very quickly. Now, we're not going to let you change fields that have logic behind them. For example, you can't change the balance, the current balance. We're not going to let you do that. But if there's a whole bunch of typos, we'll let you do that. All right. What I want to do here is I want to change my salesperson code. And the new salesperson is DC. So I can use regular Excel commands here, right? It's just an Excel file, but I'm purposely going to make a mistake here. So I've gone in and I've made the change. You know, maybe you now are starting to use email for your customers. So you can put in email addresses here, get them all in at once, and then publish it back. So I'm going to go ahead. I've made my changes. On my navigation pane here, I'm going to click this Publish button and watch what happens. Okay, I have a message. 4 changes were successfully published, but 1 there's an error on. It even tells me. Not only does it tell me the record, it tells me the field. All right, so I'm going to open the message center, and even though it's a little cryptic, it does tell me the field salesperson code contains a value that's not in the related table. So basically, CD doesn't exist. And that's a good thing, right? We're saving you from yourself. If I go ahead and look at this in Business Central, this last record will not have changed. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you one other thing. You can save this file. You can save it, and every time you open it, you can choose refresh. And when you choose refresh, it will dynamically update. So if you are constantly making changes to customer records, well, there may be a different issue, right? But if you do need to keep editing things on a list, save this, refresh it, make your changes, and then publish them back. Now, do you notice I refreshed and it refreshed the data, and look at this. I changed it to DC. So let me come over back to Business Central. I will refresh the page in Business Central. And look at that. Our salesperson has been changed to DC, except for the last customer where I made the mistake. So now you guys can do your backflips, because now you should be excited. So we have open in Excel, we have edit in Excel, right? And wait till you see what's next. I'm going to create a general journal entry. Let me get rid of this one. Okay, this is where we create our journal entries. And I just so happen to have an Excel file that has the same columns that my Business Central page does. So you know what I'm going to do here, right? I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to highlight from Excel, and I'm going to come over to my posting date field, right mouse click, and paste. Now maybe you want to do double backflips, because this is really nice. It's not just this window. Okay, if you are using journals within Business Central, and you will, and you're going to love them, you can copy and paste into the journals. And if there's a mistake, we'll tell you. We won't paste it in. Okay, there will be a problem. Now I want you to look at this. We've got document number 3 one record, and then we've got 2 number 4s. So this is a general journal entry, and this appears to be a one-line journal entry, and you say they can't exist, right? So I have account number 61300, utilities expense. I'm reclassifying it for $100. And now I have a column here called balancing account type. And this is the other side of my entry, right? So the balance account type is the GL, and the account number is 61200. So it's going to debit 61300, it's going to credit 61200. I did this in one line. Now, if you want to be more traditional, you can enter multiple lines here. Okay, that's what the next entry does. Okay, so I've got a journal entry that's going to debit 61400, credit, negative number, 61500. So we have multiple lines and no balancing account because we're not doing it on one line. This will produce 2 entries for us. Okay. I can choose to preview my posting. So think of this as your edit list. And if I open up my entries, the document number will be the journal number once we post it. So you see we have a debit and a credit, a debit and a credit. And I did this using copy and paste. Pretty nice, huh? All right. One last thing about Excel. Let's see. I need a trial balance. So I come to my chart of accounts. Under report, I'm going to choose trial balance detail / summary. Now, this is a big deal in GP, right? Yeah, you can get a summary trial balance in GP to Excel by sending it to a tab delimited file, importing it into Excel, doing some cleanup, getting rid of the page headers, getting rid of the underscores, the page breaks, etc. But you can do it, right? But it takes work. I can do that same thing here without any work at all. Okay, I want a summary, and I want it just for the year of 2021. Okay, I have plenty of other options. I have a true print preview here. So I can choose preview. And very easily, I have my summary trial balance. I can print it from here too, send it to the printer. I also have the option, instead of the preview, I can go directly to my printer. But even better, I have this send to button. So when I am generating a report from Business Central, I have the 4 options in send to. I can create a PDF automatically, a Word document, an Excel file, or I can even schedule this. So let's say every week you'd like to have this trial balance delivered to you on Fridays. Well, we'll schedule that, and we can schedule it, and we can say, okay, generate this report weekly, deliver it 8 o'clock on Friday mornings or whenever. Okay, you no longer have to worry about coming in here and generating it. It's going to show up on your Roll Center page under My Reports when it's ready for you. Okay. But nevertheless, we're going to come here to Microsoft Excel document, and we'll click OK. Here's my Excel file. It's made for people much younger than me because it's an 8-point font. I certainly cannot see that. So let me change it. And here we have our summary trial balance in Excel without, well, the only modification I did or formatting I did was make it bigger, right? Okay, watch this. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to choose that trial balance. This time I want detail. Now, let me tell you, you can't do this in GP unless you have an SSRS report or some other third party. Modifying the detailed trial balance from GP to be able to open in Excel is a near impossibility. Oh, did I just open this? Oh, that's the detail. Here it is, again, made for younger people who can read 8-point fonts. I can't. There we go. Look at this. Here we have a detailed trial balance. Sure, I'd resize the columns, but there's not much more work I have to do with this. So are you happy? You should be happy. You should be clapping. We looked at 4 things that Excel has, or the features that Business Central has for Excel. Okay, open in Excel, edit in Excel, copy and paste, and then when you have a report, you can send to Excel.
Gina, I'm pretty sure I heard a lot of clapping and cheering.
Oh, see, I'm so glad.
Even from my remote office here in Nebraska.
There you go. There you go. So Jay's in Nebraska, Michelle's in Arizona. I'm in kind of sunny, not really, Chicago. I'm going to show you. We're going to talk about journals briefly, because journals could be like a whole day up here. So when we have, I'm going to use payables again as my example. If I have a payables transaction in GP, I'm going to come to transaction entry, right? If it's a purchase order or an invoice that's coming in from a purchase order, we'd go to enter match invoices, right? If it's a sales transaction, you know, we might go to receivables transaction entry, we might go to SOP transaction entry. It just depends on what we have. Same thing in Business Central. So in GP, I'd enter my vendor, document number.
Gina, header. Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Yes.
And I apologize. I just saw this question come in from Dawn. She wanted to know if you can manipulate that report that you just exported.
Oh, the trial balance? You absolutely can. And the person who likes to do those things would be our one and only Jade Blacksher.
That's me.
Yeah. So the report writing tool, if you are a report writer, you can do it yourself, but most of the time when we make modifications, any modifications to a report, Jade takes care of those for us. So the answer is yes.
And then Rhonda also had a question about the financial reporting tool built right into the product, or is there an add-on or an app that they need for that?
Well, we do have, that's a good question. Hi, Rhonda. Account schedules are where you would be creating and generating your financial reports. So think of this as Management Reporter. It has some features that Management Reporter doesn't have, which is really nice. And it doesn't have some features that MR has. So if your financial reporting needs, and we do this as part of the solution overview, if your your existing reports cannot be created efficiently with account schedules, then we typically look to Jet Reports for it, because Jet Reports is designed to integrate with Business Central. So you've got choices, and I'm sure there's other tools out there. Jet Reports is the one I'm most familiar with. So yes, we have built-in reports, and these reports are automatically created when you create your chart of accounts. And then of course you can create new ones right from here too. And I know we have, Michelle, we have a video, don't we, on analysis views?
We do.
Okay, so we do have a nice video, dimensions and analysis views that go deeper into those ideas. So if you would like those, you can just hit Jada up in the Q&A and we'll get it taken care of. Okay. So if I'm entering a transaction in GP, I've got to enter my header, put in my vendor, my invoice number, the amount, and our distributions, right? Pretty simple. Here in Business Central, and that would be a purchase invoice. And I have the same information, okay? Who is my vendor? So I'm going to just select Worldwide Importers, right? What's my invoice number? Now, I have line items here. So here's a slight difference, but I'm not in an inventory situation here. This is just an overhead invoice, right? So I don't have inventory item. My type is going to be GL account. The number is going to be the GL account number. So pretend you're in your distribution window right now, okay? So I'm entering rent expense. I can come in, I have to have a quantity, and I'm going to put in $700. Okay, so I can easily enter my payables invoice in this window here, even if there is no if there's not multiple distributions. Okay, you can put one line in here. If there are multiple distributions, then you would come down and put in GL account and then go to the next one and the amount of it there. Okay, now we can do this same thing with a purchase journal. Okay, if I go to purchase journal, I have one line of information. I do have batches, right? So I can enter all kinds of transactions and then post them all at once. Okay, so the date of my purchase. Okay. I'm going to come over to document number. And this time, my account number, oh, I forgot what I used. 61500. Okay, I'll use 61500. Okay, so here's my expense line. So I've done the distribution. I have one more thing to do though. So we have that balancing account type and balancing account number. Now we saw that with our general journal entries, right? But this time my balance account type isn't a GL account because that would just be a general journal entry. This time it's going to be vendor. And I'll come into my balancing account number. It's not GL accounts anymore. It's my vendors. When I post this, it's the same as posting that purchase invoice. So let's do a preview. Now notice on here, we've got more than just a GL entry. Okay, so our GL entry is going to be a debit to that miscellaneous expense and a credit to AP. You're okay with that one. But we also have vendor ledger entries. This is your subledger or your open payable transaction for this vendor. And then we've got the detailed vendor ledger entry, which is going to show us the distribution on it. So posting this transaction, think of this as posting through the general ledger, right? We're going to update the subledger. So AP is correct. And then we're going to update the general ledger so that we're staying in balance, of course, when I go ahead and post this. Okay, I have an opportunity to post, even just post and print a report. It's not quite the posting journal that GP is, but at least it's prettier than the GP posting journal. So do you like this or are you more comfortable here, right? Total preference. I think when I teach people purchasing, if I have a payables transaction that is not related to a purchase order, right? And it doesn't have multiple distributions on it, I would do a purchase journal because I can do those all day long. I can even copy and paste, right? Even if I have multiple distributions, I can still do a purchase journal. So if you have, like, some people use Concur with GP and they get a file to integrate or import the Concur expense transactions into GP. If you do anything like that, well, we can certainly use Edit in Excel. We can use a configuration package. We can use copy and paste into the purchase journal. Okay. So when we do our solution overview, we have met with you. We've talked about your business, what you like, what you don't like, what you hope for. So we have answers to some questions that are going to make you more efficient right away. Right? So you may or may not use purchase invoice. You may or may not use purchase journal. There are some people who are freely interchanging them. And then there are some folks who say, nope, we do everything as a purchase invoice. We have the same thing for sales too, right? It's not just purchasing. Oh, I forgot to show you something. Okay, here's my list. These are unposted purchase invoices. Okay, and I just entered this one here, right, for $700. But did you notice there's no save button? There's no batch. There's no save button. That's because, again, we're on a web page, and as soon as you tab out of the field, the data is saved. And I know it's saved because I can see in the upper right-hand corner a little check mark that says saved. So if I don't know if I can be able to do this without, I'm going to say it first. So watch the saved item in the upper right-hand corner. When I tab out of the field, see that? It says, oh, I almost got to say it. It said saving, and then it's saved. Okay. If you don't want this, if you've made a mistake and you don't need it, you haven't posted it yet, right? You just click delete at the top of the screen. And now it's gone. So no batches here, but certainly on your journals, there's batches, and you just get to post. If you've known me for a long time, you know in GP, I can't stand transaction level posting. I tell everybody, you put it in a batch, you print an edit list, check your work, and then you post your batch. You use batches to post one batch at a time so that you don't mix up your batch with somebody else's. Like I can say that in my sleep. Well, guess what? I've now changed my tune. I can say, hey, I can review the information right here, and now I'm going to go ahead and post. If you're using the journals, though, you would be assigning them to a batch. You can post one record out of the batch. You can post the entire batch. Totally up to you. Okay, before I turn my screen over to Michelle, I'll give you 10 seconds or so if you have any other questions on the few items that I've covered so far.
We've got lots and lots of questions. A lot of them we'll actually take a look at once we get over into the Q&A segment of the webinar. But yeah, lots of questions. Great questions, guys. Keep them coming.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, so now I'm going to turn the video over to Michelle. She's going to show us how to use a configuration package to get data into Business Central. Michelle?
Hi, guys. All right, let me get my screen up for you. Should be seeing Business Central on my screen. I am going to be showing you guys configuration packages. I'm going to zoom through them a little bit because I know that you guys have some questions we want to get answered through Q&A. So if I'm talking too fast, I apologize. Remember, you can also always email us to account managers at truenorthdynamics.com after, or if you know any of us individually, feel free to send us emails about questions to follow up as well. And Jade will give you more info towards the end. So configuration packages, they are a very, very powerful tool and a very, very easy tool to use. They are great for importing new records, and the record type doesn't really matter. We can import anything from general ledger entries, our journal entries, to new customers, vendors, sales invoices, purchase invoices. Today, we're going to do something called our sales journal. So your transaction entry on your receivables, sales journal, and Business Central. So here's my configuration packages. I get to build whatever I want. You can see I already have some in here. Let's create a new one. You can have one configuration package that has a whole bunch of tables. You can have an individual configuration package for every single table. So I'm going to show you an example where I'm just using one table. And I'm going to call this sales journal so I know exactly what it is that I'm getting into as soon as I open this. I only need to fill in my code and my package name, and then I get to move down below. So I happen to know that my table ID is 81, but if you didn't know what your ID is here, you get to click on those vertical ellipses, your horizontal ellipses here, and it's going to open up another window. Now this window is going to show you all of the different tables and things that you want to see to choose from. You even have a nice search bar up here to look for something. So I know that this is my general journal entries, and I want to choose that table 81. All of our journals go to table 81, and it's differentiated by the name of the template and the batch that you're going to use. Now I got a pop-up that says I want to let you know that there's some linked tables. You can click yes and you get to see all the tables and data that's linked, or you could click no and just move on. Now our dimensions or our segments, you can choose to have them as a column inside of that configuration package, or you can choose not to include them. I'm going to include them so you can see. And then, oh my goodness, we can see we have 202 fields available. Now, I don't necessarily want to import all 202 fields, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose which ones I want to include. I'm first going to edit my list, and I'm going to clear those out so I can just start with a fresh page, and I'm going to start choosing the fields that I actually do want to import: my account type, my account number, my posting date, I want my document type and my document number. I'd like my description. I want my amount. And then, you know what? I know that I want my balancing account number and my balancing account type, but I just don't see them very easily here. So I'm just going to search. I know that I want balance. Okay, so I want my my balance account number and my balance account type. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and just check. You know, I just don't. I just don't like the order that this is in. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't, you know, want my balance account type all the way at the end of my list. Oh, you know what? I want my external document number too. And if I wanted my dimensions, I could bring them. They're right all the way down here. Those dimensions, if I want to have them. And you know what, let's change that order. I'm going to move up my balance account field type. So I'm going to select my line. You can tell because I have my arrow there. I'm going to move it up and I'm going to put it in the order that I want. So I'm just going to move on up here. You can see that it's moving up in the line. And my internet is angry with me today of all day, so I apologize that it's thinking so hard. But we're going to move her up and put her in the order that we want. So you can see we're making our way up here to the top. And now this one, because there's a lot of fields, it's not so much fun moving it. But the nice thing about these is that this is a kind of one-time definition and then you're done. After you've built it, you don't need to play with it anymore. It's kind of your final template that you get to keep. I'm just changing my posting date. I have my account type, account number, my document type, my document number. You know, I'm going to bring up that external document number up here. And then I think that we are perfect to go. I'm going to have it in the order that I want. The great thing is that if you're importing data from another system, let's say that you're just importing these receivables transactions because you do your sales transactions in another environment. The great thing is that whatever file that system spits out, you can actually create this one to match the same column order. So you have minimal work that you need to do, a minimal adjustments that you have to do to be able to get that data in to a new place. So now I've got all of my fields where I want them and I'm done. I can come back and if I refresh this page, I'm going to see that the number of fields included is not 202 now. It's going to be a lot less. So let's check out the page once we've refreshed here. Oh, I'm on the wrong one. Let's go back and just choose the right page. So again, we're going to use our search here for configuration packages and choose this. And now I have that sales journal with my 13 fields. All right, so the next step, I need to have my template. I'm going to come to Excel and export to Excel. And it says you have one table selected. Do you want to continue? And now I'm just going to wait for that Excel to come up. And I'm going to show you guys my entire screen now so that you can see all of it. And you should be getting an Excel file here up on my screen. And there we are. So now when you open these configuration packages, it's going to show you any data that already exists in those tables. And how this is handy is that if you needed to update data that you already have in the system, like your customers, your vendors, any records, this is a great way to update them because I could come in here and I could change my amount if I need to. I can change a date if it's incorrect. It will not delete your data. So if I'm coming here and I am coming and deleting these lines, you don't need to worry. It does not delete your information unless we choose a different field on a completely different page to delete on import. Otherwise, this works as a great update or insert table. So now I have my file from my other system. And I have my date, that it's a customer. So I can grab that data from my other file and I'm going to paste it in. And remember, I said that I made my columns to match my file from my other system. So I can make it very, very easy to just come in here and paste that information. Now I need to have these 3 fields for it to go in the right place. I need my journal template name. Now I know that this is sales. And I know that my batch that I want it to go in is default. Our batches are going to work a little similarly to GP in that you get to create your batches and name them what you want. So I'm putting it into a specific batch that I've chosen. And then a line that we have to have, a field here, is our line number, and that is the order that we want it to go in our transactions. So I can just come here and I'm going to actually just grab this and drag it down, and I can insert those lines. As long as we're going incrementally up, then it doesn't necessarily matter what our line number is. So very, very easy to get this in. I don't want to delete any of these 3 lines because these are the lines that are actually talking to Business Central to get that data in. And then we're going to save our file and we're ready to import. So I'm going to close this out. I'll close out my file from my other system, and I'm just going to come right back in, make sure your line is selected in Excel, and we're going to import. So I'm going to choose that file, and I have that here, and I'm going to open it. Now, I always tell people, when you see red on this page, red means good. If it's green, we don't want the green. Red means it's working right. So we want to import. And now we can see we have 3 records available. If I want to, I can click into those 3 records and see the data. The beautiful thing is I can click into here. So if you realize that a field was wrong, you don't need to delete all this and start over. We can add in that value and update it from here. I'm going to say OK. And then I just need to come here and apply my data. So we can see at the end, it gives us a little update. 3 records are inserted, 0 errors are found. If an error is found, you will have the opportunity to click into the number of package errors and correct those errors before you can import them. And if you wanted to, you could click into that number of database records. You can see we've got new records here. So that is a very, very quick overview of how configurations work and how easy they are to use. So I'm going to hand it back to Jade so we can get started on that Q&A and make sure we answer everyone's questions in our time that's left.
Fantastic. Wow, those configuration packages are just amazing. I certainly enjoy them. Gina, I know that you've got a slide that you want to put up, so I'll let you do that. So we're going to start with the Q&A. We've got quite a few questions that are looking for answers. If we don't get to your question today, please don't worry. We will answer those as possible through like an email or something like that. But let's start off. We've got a question that came in right away. It was, what would a chart of accounts look like since there's only one segment plus dimensions?
Okay. Hey, it's Gina again. This is what your chart of accounts will look like. One segment. So your dimensions build on that activity, right? So we use the main account number in the transaction plus the dimension. So we can use the dimension at the document level. We can use a dimension at a line item level. So for example, here's a purchase invoice. Okay. If I wanted to assign a dimension value to the entire transaction, I can do that under related invoice dimensions. And here is where I would assign my dimension code and the dimension value. Now, when I post this transaction, it's going to update my line item. So think about this like in purchase order processing or even in SOC transaction entry. If you edit, modify the header, the top part of the window, it will then trickle down to your line items. So now when I post this transaction, my general ledger is nice, neat, orderly, clean. I see it just for the account numbers that are there. But if I want to see it with the dimensions, then I can create an analysis view and I can add my dimensions onto it. So with that, if you have different dimension values per line item, whether it's purchasing, sales, even a general journal entry, at the end of the line will be your dimensions. Now, there are two global dimensions. First, the two that are most common for you, and they'll be widely available throughout the system. So in mine, I have department and customer group set up as my global dimensions. And then you can have up to 6 more dimension codes that we can add to the transaction entry line. So if I had different dimension values for each line, I can change those here. So I know it's a big leap to say, what, my chart of accounts is only going to be one segment, but I promise you, you'll love it, because when you see the account schedules and the data that you can get out of it, it's really cool.
Great. Thank you, Gina. I appreciate your answer on that one. Rhonda had a question about security, and she's asking if the security is robust enough to keep certain roles of people from making changes to master records, and if those changes are then tracked in history.
Those darn users. I'm going to let Michelle talk about security, because I don't talk about it.
All right, so there's tons and tons and tons of security in Business Central. I would even argue that there is even more than GP. So a really cool tool that we have in BC is that you get to record actions that people are completing, and then it turns it into a permission set. So if you want users to only be able to do certain tasks, then you can record what you're doing, save it, and then assign it to a user. There's a ton of pre-built ones. And there's even a few security options around those Excel exports, so the edit in Excel. So you can choose to not allow people to do the edit in Excel and change records as well. So yes, lots of security. Yes, you can keep people from changing master records. There's even a specific license called a team member license that is a read-only license, so people can come in and read objects, but they cannot change anything. The only new transactions they can do are purchase requisitions and sales quotes. And then there is also change tracking built in. You just have to turn on exactly what you want, because if we tracked everything, then your system would just be super tired all the time from all the data it's collecting. But yes, change orders in there, and you get to choose very specific tasks, like someone deleted a record or someone changed a specific field. It's a very powerful tool that you get to specifically design for how you'd like it to work.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelle. So we had 2 questions back to back on the segments dimensions questions. So Jody actually asked the question, if you currently use a segment to indicate a cost center, how would you handle that for entering purchase invoice or GL entry for that matter? For example, 2450 to 1000 is psych fees for admin, 2450 to 1100 is psych fees for PMIC. And then Don followed up also with that kind of piggybacking on that same question. They use a 6-3-3 and would need that during AP entry, AR entry, and etc. So can we talk to that a little bit? And just a reminder, there's 2 minutes left.
2 minutes, so talk quickly. Okay, 2450, Jody, is your main account number. So we didn't even get to talk about posting groups in this session. So posting groups is a whole nother issue, but that's where the 2450 would come from. And then for both you and John, those other segments are going to be able to be assigned either at the line item level or at the overall document level. So think about your distribution when you're entering the transaction. If we're splitting the distribution, the main account number is the same, but we have to split the distribution to different segment numbers, then you're going to do it at the line item. Or else, if it's just a completely different one for the entire transaction, then you would do it at the header level. So and your segment or your dimensions can be numbers. They don't have to be letters here. We can have dimension codes as numbers, and then the name would be more descriptive. So that you would have that familiarity with your GL account number right now. So you can do that for general ledger entries, for sales transactions, purchases, bank ledger entries. You can assign dimensions everywhere.
So we will get out a video to whomever wants it on those dimensions, and even your account schedules that are using the dimensions that we reveal. So again, feel free to email us at accountmanagers@truenorthdynamics.com for questions. Jody, I see you have a bunch of questions on kind of implementing and some around payroll. So Gina and I will reach out to you after the webinar to kind of follow up on your questions. Rhonda had another question about extender-like fields to store additional data. The answer is yes, we can do that. Business Central is very different in GP in the fact that it's very, very easy to customize. So we can add on additional fields, we can change around windows. It's a very dynamic platform that allows us to kind of customize things for you if you need it.
So I'm just going to interrupt with just
ahead.
one. Lori had a question about, and this is kind of different than what everybody else has been asking. GP allows for pre-saved accounts for vendors. Does BC allow for this?
Yes.
Perfect.
Do you want more details? No. They're called posting.
Yes, the answer
Lori,
is
they're
yes.
called posting groups, and we can help with that. But the posting group is the same as those accounts assigned to your vendors and customers.
Okay.
I see that there is a question on how does budgeting work.
Yes.
So there is budgets inside. There's budgets on your general ledger accounts. You could do a sales budget, a purchasing budget, inventory budget. There's tons of budgets inside of Business Central. You can export a template and import it after. But if you want some more details or you want to see how it works, there's no name on there, but feel free to email us so that we can show you around of what it looks like, okay?
Okay.
I really appreciate everyone joining us. Go ahead, Jane.
I'm just going to end it off. Thanks, Michelle and Gina, for walking us through that. That was fantastic. I learn things every time I watch one of these. It's just phenomenal. We're going to be, just like Michelle said, we're going to be emailing out that recording of the webinar to all of the event registrants. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to send an email to accountmanagers@truenorthdynamics.com. Once again, that's accountmanagers@truenorthdynamics.com. And thank you all so much for joining us here today. We hope to have more of these coming up quickly in the future.